Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your host and your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Super Bowl 59 is upon us. Tomorrow, you know I'm going to give you my prediction. I'm going to tell you who I think are some of the biggest players and coaches in this game. And in second down, I'm going to be answering questions like I love to do, coming from you, the fans, and all these other people around the world. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And in my nonsense narrative, you probably don't want to hear this, but I'm going to tell you the Cleveland Browns are kind of a shipwreck right now. And Deshaun Watson is not the biggest reason. I know a lot of you are already screaming at the TV, but promise, when I break this down and tell you why, you won't have any choice but to agree. And last but not least, man, in light of the Super Bowl tomorrow, they should only be played indoors. Enough said. And I'll talk to you about that in the final drop. All that and more right here on Move the Chains, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with first down. All right, so listen. We understand what tomorrow is, and we understand how big this situation is for both teams. Before I go to the graphic that I want to pull up and show you guys some video, let's just kind of put into perspective what we're potentially looking at. The Kansas City Chiefs have the opportunity to do something that no team has ever done in the Super Bowl era. Win 3 straight Super Bowls. So we're talking about something unprecedented. 4 Super Bowls in the past 6 seasons, 3 in a row, 7 straight AFC Championship game appearances, 5 Super Bowl appearances. This will be 6. Like it's all craziness, all right? Now, if you look at it from the standpoint and the vantage point of the Philadelphia Eagles, this is a team that's been to the Super Bowl 3 in the last, 7 years? They won one with Nick Foles, but this is an opportunity to come back and beat a team they lost to 2 years ago. And for all of the people that have doubted Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and the team that's gone through coordinator after coordinator the past 3 seasons, they have done things the right way. From Howie Roseman and Brett Veach, the GMs of these teams, they understand what it takes to build championship teams. And these are both old school teams, built to run the football, built to play defense and stop the run. And there's no secret and no surprise in my mind why they're meeting tomorrow to see who the best is. All right, so now we can get the graphic up. So I just wanted to provide that context for you. All right, Chiefs are a 1.5 point favorite. I think the spread actually got down to like 1 as I think recently as maybe 2 hours ago, right? So the spread is going to fluctuate. You know that. I'm not going to get into where the money should go because that's not my lane. But I will tell you is this guy's lane in Andy Reid is winning games off of a bye. And I know a lot of times we don't look at the Super Bowl as being a bye week the week before, but it absolutely is. And for whatever reason, Andy Reid just knows how to prepare his team's physical nature, how to prepare their mental nature, and how to get himself ready with new plays to go ahead and perform against their opponent. Kansas City has been a team that has been very efficient offensively. You know, Ernest, the director of this show, made a great point about Brett Veach, the GM of the Chiefs. He said, you know how you go into Walmart and you look at those baskets and those buckets and those bins in the middle of Walmart that are like for sale and you got all these prices that have been marked down? That's what Brett Veach is. He's a bargain shopper. That's why you go out and get a guy like Hollywood Brown on a 1-year deal. You go out and get a DeAndre Hopkins on a 1-year deal. You're allowed to let L'Jarius Sneed leave in free agency and sign big money with Tennessee because you got Jalen Watson on the other end. And what they've done is just draft and develop. And I can look at the Philadelphia Eagles and say the exact same thing, like I said with Howie Roseman. Do you understand that Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, they have like 5 or 6 players on their defense that are in their 3rd year or less in the league. They are very, very, very young and very, very, very physical. Now to the game, I want to talk about that young nature and physical nature of the Eagles is because the one thing they do is line up and they beat you. And the one thing that Kansas City does is exploit what it is that you feel like you do best, especially on the offensive and defensive side of the football. The question I have about this game is who can exploit the other team's weakness the most or who can create a weakness that the other team didn't think they had. And see, that's where I look at this game and why I think Kansas City ultimately wins their 3rd championship in a row. Because Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are masters at taking a team and creating a weakness that you didn't think existed. Remember 2 years ago when the Chiefs scored 2 touchdowns in the second half that were both on motion plays where they flared back out and they were wide open because the Eagles were in man? That simply comes from scouting. So if you're going to play man in the red zone, you better be ready for it. And if you're going to play zone, Patrick Mahomes is going to be in a position where he can pick you off play by play, bit by bit. And the Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley aspect of this game. I've kept telling people that Jalen Hurts is absolutely somebody that can make sure Philadelphia wins the game. People say, well, can he be the reason they win? He can be. Even if he doesn't throw for 350 yards or rush for 100, if he throws for 220 and scores a couple touchdowns and doesn't turn the ball over, he can be the reason they won. Regardless of what happens in this game, I will be satisfied that Patrick Mahomes either wins 3 in a row as a starter for the Chiefs or Jalen Hurts is able to capture his first Super Bowl. I do think the Chiefs win the game because ultimately I think you have a team that understands the opportunity they have and they understand the opponent. And I think the Chiefs just make enough plays in the fourth quarter to win this game. All right, when we come back for the break, it'll be your questions via social media. Back when we'll move the chains right after this. And welcome back to the show, man. Before we get into second down, I want to take this very opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the opportunity to host Move the Chains. Without him, nothing, especially this opportunity for the show, but nothing in my life would have been possible. Secondly, I want to thank you, the fans. You have been amazing. I'm telling you, the amount of people that I see out in the street or that I catch at the baseball field or the football field where I'm coaching or at my kids' school, the level of support for watching this show on Fox and YouTube has been amazing. So I truly want to thank you, the fans. And listen, the production crew, before the show today, Ernest, JJ, Josiah, and myself, we're back there in the control room just doing pre-show stuff. The conversations and the level of conversations are ridiculous. Sounds like they should be on a podcast. That's a foreshadowing for things to come. More to come on that in the future. But definitely a shout out to the best production crew in the business. Hey, having said all that, it's time for your questions, so you know what that means. It's time for second down. All right, so I think coming into the Super Bowl, a.k.a. the big game and all this type of stuff, there are some questions that I want to answer about that, but also some questions that I've heard a lot of people ask throughout the season. So let's go ahead and get it started here with my first question. Who's the most underrated player in the Super Bowl? And by the Super Bowl, I mean this year between the Chiefs and Eagles. Now, I could go a bunch of different ways in my estimation. I could go Nolan Smith, DN for the Eagles, who's been phenomenal. I could go Nick Bolton, who's one of the most underrated linebackers, but I'm going to go Trent McDuffie, starting corner for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think he's underrated by the people that know the game the most because he was a first-team All-Pro last year and he's a second-team All-Pro this year, and he's only been in the league 3 seasons. I want you to understand it. Now, why am I saying he's underrated, though? It's because when I listen to individuals talk about the Chiefs, they always bring up the usual suspects. Well, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, and it's Chris Jones. And I think what happens is as people grow, develop, and become stars, they don't realize it until those stars are attached to their names. So then they become a quote-unquote big name. Well, newsflash, the NFL is full of players that are not big names. But this guy's a big-time player. And you want to know why? I'm going to tell you this, and this is the truth in my opinion. I'm not comparing Trent McDuffie to Patrick Mahomes. What I'm telling you is Trent McDuffie allows the Kansas City defense and Steve Spagnuolo to be versatile and do a lot of the things that Patrick Mahomes allows that Chiefs offense and Andy Reid to do. Because not only can he cover outside, out wide on your best receiver, he can also take any receiver in the slot. And by the way, do you remember the Buffalo game where he blitzed on the very last play for Buffalo on 4th and 5 where they pressured Josh Allen, who made that phenomenal throw where Dalton Kincaid just couldn't come up with a tough catch? It was Trent McDuffie, and it was the one time they ran it. Please believe that if the Chiefs win this game, which I think they will, he will be a big reason why, because he is that versatile in the blitz game, in the run game, and definitely in the pass game. So if the Chiefs decide that they want to double A.J. Brown and put him one-on-one on Devontae Smith, who's had good games against the Chiefs, McDuffie can get it done. If they decide that they want to just go man across the board and put him on A.J. Brown, McDuffie can get the job done. Not just the most underrated player in the Super Bowl, in my estimation, but one of the most underrated and not talked about players in the NFL, even though he's been an All-Pro 2 of the 3 seasons he's been in the league. All right, what do we have next? Should the Giants regret not re-signing Saquon Barkley? So the obvious answer is yes. Like, let's not overthink the room here. Like, the Giants are idiots. Like, Joe Shane and all you guys, Mara, the owner, like, I apologize for calling you an idiot on TV, but it's just what I feel. And you're not an idiot because you make mistakes. I think it's an idiotic move because you didn't have just a great running back, right? They come a dime a dozen. And remember, I'm the person, actually they don't. I'm the person that said I've never devalued the running back position. Remember, I've said on this show that people devalue it because they think that it's a passing league. It is a passing league, but it's still a league that you have great runners and great offensive lines win football games. Look at the Chiefs and the Eagles. But Saquon Barkley was also the face of your franchise. He was also your leader. He was also a guy who grew up, I believe, in New Jersey. He's also a guy that loved the area. He's also a guy that's loyal. You said we don't want you because you chose to devalue the position over valuing the individual and the character that you have. And not only that, you let him go to a god-darn division rival. So yes, they should regret not re-signing Saquon Barkley, and I think it'll be one of the moves that keep this team in the abyss for a long time because they still haven't gotten the quarterback position right. Oh, you didn't even have it right when you got Saquon Barkley, but yet you still made the playoffs. And then that's the piece you let walk away. All right, what's my last question here? Is Travis Kelce still a great player? The answer here is no, but I want to be very, very specific about what I'm saying. He's not a great player, but he's still a very much of an impact player. Because Travis Kelce can have 3 catches in the Super Bowl and they still win. You know how I know that? Because they're still game planning for Travis Kelce. The Eagles are still going to make sure Travis Kelce doesn't beat them. Travis Kelce will run some bubble routes, and then you'll have Hollywood Brown, or you'll have DeAndre Hopkins, or you'll have Xavier Worthy running crossing routes and slants, and they're open Juju Smith-Schuster the same way. Travis Kelce is not a great player, but he still has a great impact. And that impact may mean 3 catches, but it could result in 2 touchdowns that ultimately give the Chiefs the win. All right, when we come back from the break, it's my nonsense narrative. Everybody's killing the quarterback in Cleveland, but I'm telling you, you should be killing the reason the quarterback's in Cleveland. Nonsense narrative right after this. Woo, welcome back into the show, man. This show has been on fire. Can't wait for the Super Bowl tomorrow, but your questions were phenomenal as well. But listen, this is the type of opportunity that I take to tell you the type of narratives that are truly, truly ridiculous in my estimation. And a lot of people may even be mad at me about this because you and I are going to agree that the quarterback is not good anymore. And he's a big reason why this team is suffering, but he's not the biggest reason. So let me get to it. Let's go to my nonsense narrative. The Cleveland Browns went from Kevin Stefanski and having Baker Mayfield to being one of the better franchises in the NFL, making the playoffs multiple years, coaches of the year multiple years, to being one of the worst teams in the NFL. And now it's all coming to a head because that guy, former Defensive Player of the Year, was one of the top 4 Defensive Player of the Year candidates this year, and Myles Garrett. Remember, this is a guy that questioned his love of football because he loved to do so many things, because he's a renaissance man, a versatile individual. This man says he wants to be traded. And this man said, because if you want to win a championship in the NFL, I know there have been teams that have won championships with good quarterbacks, but you generally need a great guy under center, like Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, one of the division rivals of the Browns, to win a championship. And Cleveland hasn't had that. What makes it worse is that Cleveland has had one of the best defenses in the NFL, top 15, top 10 defense the past 3 or 4 seasons, because they've drafted very well. And that's what really makes me upset about this. Cleveland has drafted well. They've got Denzel Ward. They've got guys like Grant Delpit, Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb. Like, they've done a good job along that offensive line. They've had one of the best offensive lines the past 4 or 5 seasons. They haven't gotten a lot wrong other than the quarterback. So listen, I'm telling you, Deshaun Watson has been horrendous in Cleveland. And the reason is this. I'm not even talking about football. The fact that he went through all of those sexual abuse allegations and sexual assault allegations, it changed him. I'm telling you, there's no way that an individual, in my estimation, could sustain that and not have it change him for better or for worse at any point in time, right? So Deshaun Watson's been bad. But if you're Cleveland, you knew all this before you brought him in. And I've been saying this, guys. I've been saying this. You not only brought him into your team, understanding the bags that he was bringing, but you also guaranteed him more money than any quarterback in NFL history. And because you guaranteed him that money, you weren't able to sustain the bad play that he had. You weren't, and the reason I'm saying that is because you're keeping him on the field, even though he got hurt again. But you wouldn't pull him because you knew we're paying him all this money. We've got to justify this contract. And that's one of the biggest things that I think teams do. General managers and Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam, the owner, and I think Andrew Berry is more of the scapegoat here because Jimmy Haslam made this decision. They were so desperate for a quarterback that they had, look at what Baker Mayfield's done since he's been in Tampa. Baker Mayfield was good in Cleveland. Remember, he led them to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Okay? Do you remember that? And they were a couple of plays away from getting to a conference title game when they lost to the Chiefs. But you had it, but you let him walk. And now you were so desperate to get the signal caller that you went out and got a guy that you prayed, one, would be what he was in Houston, and two, would be able to just play through all the off-field allegations he had. Do you remember the Braves back in the, I think, early 2000s or what have you, when they signed B.J. Upton to that huge deal to be their starting center fielder, and B.J. Upton hit like 200 or 190, and the Braves never wanted to pull him out of center field? It's because they were trying to justify the terrible contract. Well, we're paying him all this money, we have to see it through. Sometimes the best way to see it through is to close your eyes and understand that we didn't get the job done, so let me move on. And before I go to break, I'm going to make this last point. He wants to be traded. Ironically, you have an opportunity to trade one of your best pieces and get a haul for him. So the same position that you were able to put the Houston Texans in when they were able to get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson and all those guys to now they're the best team in the AFC South for years to come, you can do the same thing because you've run off one of your best players. Man, funny the way that works. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final drive. You don't want to miss it. Back when we move the chains, right after this. Man, welcome back to Move the Chains. Hey, the show's been great, and we've hit the final stride, so you know what that means. It's time for the final drive. Super Bowl should never be played outdoors. Point blank, period. Always play them indoors. And I'm somebody who loves inclement weather when it comes to football games because you have to be able to adjust. But this is the Super Bowl. You want the two best teams in the best situation possible. I don't have to worry about snow. I don't have to worry about rain. I don't have to worry about wind. And more importantly, I pray I don't have to worry about excuses, because when you go on the neutral site and in a dome indoor facility, everything is in everybody's favor. Now go out and win the game and don't make excuses when you don't. All right, hey, don't forget, you can not only watch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, but you can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe. It's at @move_the_change. Subscribe, like, leave a comment. We're here for it. Another banger, a Super Bowl of a banger. Hey, for your boy, I'm your boy Jonathan Van Rivers, and for the best production crew in the business. Until next time, here on Move the Chains, as always, God bless.